What's up guys, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be showing you how to change the thermal pads on your Founders Edition 3080. And with that, I'm going to tell you what you need to start off with first. So first, of course, you're going to need a 3080 Founders Edition with their horrible temperatures. Secondly, what you're going to need is a toolkit of some sort. I like iFixit, but you don't have to use them. There's different brands, different things that you can use. I've been using this for a really long time. It has every bit I need, and I'm just gonna keep using my kit. They work really great. I'll put a link down in the description below if you wanna go ahead and use that. But in the toolkit specifically, you're going to need a few different bits. You are gonna need a Phillips 0, and then you're gonna need a T5 Torx bit and possibly a T6 Torx bit. Now, the reason you're gonna need possibly one or the other is because if you start to strip the screw, you're gonna wanna use the higher number Torx to make sure that you don't actually strip it. So try with the T6 first. If it's too big, go ahead and use the T5. I ended up having to use both of them. So another bit that you guys are going to need is the Torx T9H. So you're going to need a Phillips 00, a Torx 5 or 6, and the T9H Torx. And the T9H Torx is to remove the IO shield. So yeah, you're going to need all those. Next, you are going to need something to clean your graphics card with. These Noctua pads work amazing. You can use isopropyl rubbing alcohol and cotton swabs or ear cleaners, which you should probably also get. Well, you don't need them, they just come in handy. If you get like wipes, those dry off very quickly. Otherwise, you could get some paper towels also to replace these. But just be careful, you don't want to leave any paper behind. You're going to need some sort of thermal paste. I'm using the Noctua thermal paste. And conveniently enough, Noctua has a H2 kit. Now, this kit comes with, I believe, like 6 or so cleaning wipes and the thermal paste. So I'll have that link down in the description below because it comes in very handy. You just buy this and it comes with pretty much all the thermal cleaning and paste that you need, and it's enough to keep using. So now I have extra pads and extra thermal paste, which I need because I was running out of thermal paste before this video. So I was cleaning up some of my older cards. Next, you are going to need something to pry the card open. Specifically, there's a handful of pieces that you're gonna need something like this, or maybe one of these like guitar pick type things. You're also going to need the thermal pads themselves. In this video, I bought the 3mm and 2mm versions of the Guild or Gilid, or however you guys want to pronounce it. I don't really care, but it is these thermal pads. I will have them linked down below for you guys. It's the GP Extreme 2mm. So this is what I ended up using. I bought both the 2 and the 3mm, and the 2mm worked best. So I bought 2 of them, and I ended up using all of it except for just a little, which you will see in the video. So it wouldn't hurt to buy 3 of them just in case, but they are a little bit pricey, so you don't have to buy 3. 3 is if you make a mistake and need to recut something. 3 will come in handy, and you can always use it later. It doesn't really expire. Then you will need some needle nose pliers, some really small ones, or some other sort of small pliers, because you're going to need to remove some ribbon cables. And you're going to want to be careful not to cut or pinch the cables. So you're going to use the flat end of these, but it has to be really small and really thin to be able to pull it out. And next, you're going to need some tape. And this tape is going to be used to remove the magnetic pieces on the graphics card that hide screws underneath. Last but not least, you're going to need scissors or an X-Acto knife. I lost my X-Acto knife while I was filming the video, and so I had to find these scissors and use those. So without further ado, let's head on over. I'll show you guys how to set everything up right here behind me. Alright guys, so first things first, you're going to want to grab your graphics card. And you're going to want to find a place that is anti-static. Now this is a rubber anti-static mat. It's actually the backing of a mat that I have. So it works really well for this case. You could use anything that's anti-static and it'll work just fine. The first thing that I am going to grab after that is going to be my tools. Now I am using an iFixit toolkit here for this teardown. It has everything that we need, all the bits, the hex bits, the Phillips and everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab that. And then next I am going to grab my thermal compounds that I have. And the ones that I'm using is the Gelid or the Gield or however you want to pronounce it. It's G-E-L-I-D is the branding. Now this is a 2mm sized one, and then I also have a 3mm sized one here, and as you can see I've kind of opened them just to make sure that I got what I wanted, and you can see it is a thermal pad. So we are going to be using this to replace the ones that are on the 3080 here. And I'll put the amounts and all the descriptions down below so you guys can see how many of these you will need. Once I'm done, I'll make sure I bought 2 of each just in case, because I wasn't exactly sure how many I needed for this and I didn't want to run out mid-video. So the first thing that we're gonna do now that we have our tools and everything that we need, I also forgot to mention we're gonna need some tape. Go ahead and grab your toolkit and your graphics card, and we're actually going to flip the graphics card over. And there we go. So you want to flip the graphics card over because there are all the screws on this side. So the first thing that we're going to do is there are screws here, 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 and here on the graphics card. These are magnetically attached to the graphics card. So to get them off, we're actually going to need tape. Cut yourself a little piece. I got a little piece here. And what you're going to do is you're kind of going to take it, tape it on like this, and you're going to pull off. And when you pull it off, you should see, if this focuses, doesn't really want to focus, but you can see this little metal thing. Now this metal thing, you're going to want to keep these. There's 4 of them, and so I'm going to set it aside on the mat. If I zoom out here, you can see I'm just going to set it aside over here. Now we're going to want to do that for the remainder of these. So I'm going to go ahead and grab another piece of tape. I'm going to do this one here, like so. Oh, that one didn't come off. We'll do it again. There we go. We got the next one. So I'm going to set it down, tape it to my mat, grab the next bit of tape, and we're going to continue the process until all 4 of them are off the graphics card. Should be here in a second. We'll get this last one off. All right, perfect. So to start off, this is actually going to be fairly simple. You just need a Phillips bit, a small Phillips bit. So grab your screwdriver and grab a small Phillips bit, which I have here. Oh. All right, so you got the small Phillips bit and the screwdriver. And then you're going to want to unscrew these 4 screws. So you're going to take this screw off, and you're going to take this screw off, so on, and so forth, until all of these 4 screws are taken off. Now, make sure you keep all the screws together in one spot. So I am keeping the top screws on my mat up here. So as you can see, I have the 4 metallic attached ones, and then I have my other screws here. So I'll zoom back in on the card so you can see that there are no more screws here. Now, after you have taken this off, you should be able to pry off this piece over here. And the way that I do it is by using, there's 2 things that I use in this kit that work. Well, actually there's 3. You need one of these guitar pick looking things, or one of these spudgers. Now this is metal, so it can scratch, so the plastic stuff is better, so the guitar pick, or maybe one of these kind of spudger, the plastic spudgery pick type things. Either or will work. So we're gonna first start off by using this, and you just need to kind of get it under there and just pull up, and as you can see it should pull up, and then you're gonna want to go over to the sides here and do the same thing and kind of pull up, and it should just come right off. And then I'm gonna set that off to the side also, so that way we can keep track of it. Now that this is completely removed, there are some things that we need to be aware of, because when you remove those pieces, these bits in here are no longer going to be the Phillips bits. They're actually going to be one of the hex type bits, I believe, and it is going to be the Torx T5, and this is what you're going to need to remove these 4 screws from this area here. So we're going to remove these 4 screws. And once again, we are going to want to make sure that you keep the screws separate from the other screws, as they are different, and we want to make sure that everything goes back exactly where it was. Alright, so next thing is we're going to move on to this part of the card here with the I/O. There's going to be 4 different screws here that you're going to need to remove, 2 here and 2 here. Now these are also going to be Torx screws, and these ones are bigger Torx screws. So take your Torx bit, put it aside, and you're going to want to grab a bigger Torx screw. So we're going to use the Torx T9H now on the front of the card here. So I'm just going to remove these really quickly here. So, and as you remove it, you're going to want to be careful, because this will start everything coming apart. Alright, so once you have all of these screws taken out, you're going to want to take the card and make sure you're holding it tightly on both sides, because it might come apart and you don't want that. So we're going to flip it back to this side with the PCB, and the front I/O panel, this part should have come off. So we're going to take that and set it to the side also. Now you need to be a little bit careful, and you can take off this entire piece. So I'm going to go ahead and take it off. But when you take it off, we need to be careful, because there are 2 rubber grommet type things on them. And I don't know if you can see, there's one there, and they stay here. Let's see here. There's 2 of them. One is here on the card, and the other one is here on the card. And they don't make spare ones of these, so try not to lose them, because you probably can't get them back. So I'm going to go ahead and use these pliers, because one of them stayed behind. And I'm going to set these aside. And since they are so important, I'm going to tape them down to my mat so that way they don't disappear and hopefully my cat doesn't eat them or play with them. Next, we're gonna look at this back plate here, and as you can see, there's already some thermal pads on it, but we're not gonna worry about that right now. We have the entire back piece of the graphics card here, and the first thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna identify 3 main components on here. And those 3 main things are going to be the pin that is right here. And you can barely see it, so I'm gonna try here. It's this pin right here, and let's see if I can zoom in a little more. And so I can't actually zoom in a little more, so I'll bring the GPU closer to the camera so that way you guys can see. Now, hopefully you should be able to see this a little bit better. This right here, this connector, this is one that you're gonna need to identify and make sure that you see this one. You're gonna also want to look for this connector here, and then further on the card, there is going to be one more connector to the top, and that one is going to be right here. So all 3 of these connectors, and I'll get them all into view, so you can see all of them. This connector here, this connector up here, and then finally this connector up here. We're gonna need to remove them. Now, to remove this connector, you're going to need to take something, preferably not sharp like these unless you're experienced and are very careful, but you need to push this metal piece forward like that. And now that the metal piece is forward, you can go ahead and use the flat side of some sort of pliers or a piece of plastic, such as this device, and you can use that to pull up on the cable, which will release it. And so that is removed. That is probably the simplest one to remove. The next one that we're going to remove is this one right here. And the way to remove these is you have to unlock them first. So to unlock them, you need to pull up on this black piece. Now there's a little black piece here. So I like to use something like this, and you just pull up on it until the lock is open. Now once the lock is open, you can use another piece of plastic or some sort of non-sharp pliers, or you can use this plastic piece and gently pull it back. You want to be careful to avoid any tearing on the device. So I'm going to try and pull it out. And I may need to set my graphics card down on the mat to help pull it out. And I'm just going to use the flat bit here to pull this out. Now you guys should be able to see that we have pulled 2 out of the 3 out. So next we're going to do this one up here. And we're going to be a little bit careful. We're going to first pull up this plastic bit. Now that the gate is open, we can remove the cable. So I'm going to carefully rotate this graphics card. Here it is. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to make sure that I get the flat surface of this so as not to puncture the cable. You want to go underneath the cable and gently pull until the cable has been removed. So we got all of these cables removed now. Now we will work on unscrewing the actual heatsink from the graphics card. The way we're going to do so is going to be a little bit different. We're going to actually remove this in a cross pattern, and the reason we're going to do that is because these are tension screws. So we're going to do it kind of like you're changing out the vehicle, a tire on your vehicle. We're going to go with this one, this one, this one, and this one. And we're not going to do one too far because it's going to add pressure to the other one since they are spring loaded. So I'm going to start with this one and unscrew it a little bit. Come to this one, unscrew this one a little bit, come here, unscrew this one a little bit, come here and unscrew this one a little bit, and then I'm going to repeat the process. Now this bit that I'm using, I forgot to mention to you guys, this one is a T6 bit. So make sure to grab a T6 bit and start unscrewing with that. If the T6 bit is too big, you can drop down to the T5. But for me, I have found that the T6 bit is the proper bit size for this card. So we're just gonna continue doing this over and over until the graphics card is removed, not unscrewing one section more than the other. Make sure to keep these, as these screws, like I mentioned, are tensioned screws. So we can't just replace them with any old screws, or they won't fit. So, and we're gonna grab this plate and we're gonna set it aside. Now that that has been removed, make sure that your cables are free, so that way when you pull up the PCB, they will not get snagged. Unzoom just a little bit here, and I'm gonna go ahead and start removing the PCB. Now, it can be a little bit tricky as the thermal paste on your card is going to be very sticky. So it's being a little sticky for me, so I'm gonna pull a little harder, and there we go. So we now have the back side and the front side of the card. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take this and I'm going to set it aside, and we are going to grab this. And as you can see, this is your graphics card. And we are gonna start cleaning everything here. And then we are going to start the repasting. And now to clean and repaste everything, I am using this Noctua set that comes with the thermal compound and some cleaning wipes. And I'll have a link to this down below. This has come in very handy because it helps clean and repaste. You can buy the cleaners by themselves, and you can buy the thermal paste, I believe, used to come by itself. I am not sure if it does anymore, but it is very handy to have those. So go ahead and purchase those if you don't have anything that you wish to use. So we're gonna grab one of these packages, and I have already opened one up and it gives you this cleaning cloth. So I'm going to open up this cleaning cloth here, and I'm going to start the cleaning process. And first I'm gonna start with the die right here, and I'm just gonna start cleaning, and this thermal paste is on pretty rough, so I kind of have to be a little bit more aggressive than normal. So this paste is really dried out already, which just goes to show the quality of paste that NVIDIA uses, which we are not surprised by. None of us should be surprised. So just go ahead and clean this off. Don't be too forceful, but use a little bit of pressure to clean off the die. And don't be afraid. This is wet, yes, but they are special cleaning wipes, so you don't actually need to worry about like frying your card with them, as they are made for cleaning dies, such as this one. It's not specific to graphics cards, but that doesn't affect any of that. Now, Q-tips are not necessary, and you don't need them, but they are kind of handy when it comes to getting some of the harder to reach spots that just don't want to clean up. And you can be a little bit more precise, like these corners here. I just want to get all the gunk out of there. Just clean this up. You want to make sure you don't want to leave any cotton residue either. So go ahead and clean that up. Just going to clean off this die. And then we're going to want to clean the VRAM. So go ahead and start cleaning this off. Use a clean portion of this rag and you can continue. You may be able to just grab another one if you have multiple. Just gonna keep cleaning here. You don't really need to get in between the cracks too much. It's not that important. So if there's a little bit of residue, it's okay. We just need to make sure that the main top portion of these VRAMs and other components are clean for when we reapply the thermal paste. Now that you have this portion cleaned off, I am actually going to set it to the side, and I am going to grab the main heatsink, and now we're going to start cleaning this off. So I'm going to grab another thermal compound rag, or cleaning rag, and we are going to start by cleaning off the main heatsink for the die. Let's go ahead and start cleaning that off. As shiny as possible is the best. Let's go ahead and remove all this junky thermal paste compound. Here's all the residue. And then you're going to take this rag and start cleaning this off again, because we want to have a nice connection for our thermal pads to the VRAM. So that way we have proper cooling, unlike what NVIDIA has given us. You would think that for a graphics card at this price point, that they would have put a little bit more effort on the cooling portion, especially when these are currently the only ones that are MSRP. Everything else has high inflated prices, even without scalping. So this is nice and clean now. All of this is nice and clean. So now you're going to take this thermal pad here and you're going to cut them to length for this, and this. So you can use scissors or a knife to cut the thermal compound into proper strips. Using a knife is going to be a lot more exact. In fact, using an X-Acto knife is probably your best bet. That way you can slice the portions that you need without having to worry about it. If you don't have an X-Acto knife or don't want to purchase an X-Acto knife, it's not a problem. Go ahead and use scissors. It's just going to be a little bit more messy. Now we have the thermal pads on the graphics card. So I'm just gonna go over what I did here. I grabbed my Geeld thermal pads, and I used the 2mm ones, and I used a whole one of these. And as you can see, I used a whole one plus a little bit. So you will need two probably to finish this. And we'll see how much the back takes, because I haven't done the back plate just yet. We have to replace the pads here, put pads here, these ones, this one, these ones, and this one. But there's also another pad that I added, and I added this one right here to keep that little piece cool. We don't want to have any weird thermal runaways going on over there. So now that that's been added and the die is clean and the heatsink is clean, I'm going to go ahead and start the process of adding thermal compound. Make sure it's nice and clean, which ours is, and then you're going to go on ahead and grab your thermal compound. Now, the method that I use for graphics cards is going to be different than the method that we use for CPUs. And that's because the die is significantly bigger on a graphics card. You can think of it almost like a thread ripper. And so we're actually going to do something that you would do on maybe a thread ripper. And that's going to be, we're going to use the X with 4 dots method. So make sure this is out. And then we're just going to start applying the thermal paste here. Come on. And we're going to apply it in a X. Then we're going to add 4 dots of thermal compound. Oh, that one didn't go. And it looks really messy, but that's okay. We want to make sure that there is enough thermal compound to cover the complete die when we put it back. So like I said, it looks kind of messy, especially compared to when we're thermal pasting a CPU, but that's okay. We need the thermal paste in this context. So now that this is done, we're actually going to attach this back onto the heatsink. And to do so, we are going to grab this here. And you're going to want to make sure that all of these cables are out of the way. That way, when you put everything back, they don't get pinched in any way, shape, or form. So we're gonna slowly add it in. Just gonna make sure that all my cables are above. This one's being a pain. All right, there we go. That would go there. Let's make sure this one's up. Okay, that one is up. Perfect. Okay, so now that that is set properly down on the heatsink, we are going to start the reassembling process for the backplate. So we're going to grab this bit that we took off earlier and we're going to place it down like so. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with any of the corners and just lightly screw in one corner, then go ahead and screw in the corner that is diagonal to it. Oh, that one didn't take hold. Let's try again. Okay, there we go. We're going to do this corner now. And now we're going to do the last corner. And make sure that you're not screwing these in all the way. Just as we unscrewed them, we're going to want to screw them back in. So now that I have all of them in, I'm going to go ahead and slowly screw this one, slowly screw this one, and continue until the entire card is screwed back in. And this makes sure that not one side has too much tension. All right, so once you have that all back, we're gonna go ahead and start putting all of these connectors back in. So we are gonna start out with this little connector over here. And I'm going to go ahead and take my little tweezers on the flat side, make sure that it's not the pointy side. And I'm just going to use them to align the cable. That way it is in the gate. So once it is in the gate, you can press the gate latch back down and it will hold the cable in place. Now we are going to go to the next one, which is this one right here. Make sure that the metal piece is pulled out. That way this can click back in. It goes down, in, you push it down, and then you take the gate and you push it back. Now the last one that we're going to do is this one right here. And make sure your gate is all the way up. Take the flat part of the cable and just make sure that you are not pinching anything. And this one is probably the trickiest out of all of them. This one is the trickiest because you got the least amount of space to work with. Come on. All right, there we go. We got that last one in there. And now we close the gate. Perfect. So now that we have that put together, we are actually going to apply more of the thermal pads. And we are going to put them here on the back section of the graphics card. And the way we are going to do that is by adding some padding. So I'm not completely finished yet. I got one more piece left to do, and I figured it wouldn't hurt if I showed you guys exactly how I've been measuring everything. It's not very scientific, I'm not gonna lie, but it definitely works. So I've been taking the plastic piece, the pieces with the plastic on both sides still, and I've been setting it up like this, using this tool here to kind of go along the thermal compound on the pad like that and tracing it out, and then using my scissors because I actually can't find my X-Acto knife. So I'm using these small little scissors that I have, and it seems to cut without any problems. So I just wanted to show you guys how I've been measuring everything. That way you see my process, because I figured maybe you wouldn't know if I wouldn't tell you exactly how I did it. You know, you might wonder, hey, how did you come up with your measurements and how did you cut everything? So I figured I might as well show you guys how I did it. But now I've actually completely pasted the back of the card with the thermal pads, and this is all that I have left. Out of the two 2mm boxes, I have this left. So it won't hurt to have extra. My plan was if I ran out, I would probably use a 3mm, buy another 2mm, and come back and redo it. So I don't want you guys to redo it. So like I said, maybe buy an extra. It doesn't hurt to have around, and you can use it if you have any other graphics cards, maybe like the Gigabit 3080, because that thing is just horrible. So now that we have this completely repadded, I'm actually going to take it aside again, and I'm going to bring this up. Now, this is interesting because we're going to remove almost everything. Now, what we're going to leave is this tiny little thin one, because apparently NVIDIA added this after some complaints arose of hotspots on the graphics card. So we're just going to remove this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So make sure to remove those. Oh, and we're actually going to try and clean this up now. So on this side, so I'm going to take one of my rags again, one of my little rags. I'm going to find a clean spot because there's no point in opening that just for this tiny amount of cleaning that we're going to be doing. So I'm just going to clean where that thermal paste was, just to make sure that there's nice contact. Make sure not to touch that one because it will disintegrate since it's so light. And that's good enough. Now just let it dry a couple of seconds like that, maybe. All right, it's good. I mean, it dries really quickly, so that's fine. Now that we have that, we can take this and set that on. So now we're basically done and ready to go reassembling everything. So we are going to work essentially in reverse order that we started and reassemble everything. We are going to grab our I/O shield and the screws that come with it. And we're going to start putting it back together. I'm going to go ahead and grab my kit. Now you want to be careful because we have the thermal pads on, so you don't want to touch them just because they'll stick to you and then they'll come off. So I'm going to make sure everything is lined up here with the IOs. Everything's good here. I'm going to go ahead and slap this on here like so. And I'm going to look at it top down. You guys can't see, but this is what it'll look like. But you guys, it's going to be vertical. Just make sure that everything's lined up before you start screwing everything in. Then you take screws, just start screwing it back in. And the order doesn't really matter as much on this, specifically because it's not like tensioned at all. It's just normal screws, so it shouldn't really matter which order you put everything in. Screw that in. All right, and I'm just gonna do the last one really quick off camera. Just get them a little snug, not too tight. I'll show you here in a second once I'm done tightening everything. Now that everything's in there tight, it should look back to this, like that. Essentially back to normal. Whoops, there I go. I touched that and it kind of started coming off. All right, so now that you have the front I/O, you can go ahead and grab the back plate and we're gonna set it on. But this is the part where, if you remember from earlier, we had the weird screws, or not weird screws, but the weird rubber grommets. These weird, whoa, no, we don't want to lose it. These weird rubber grommets. And we're gonna take them, and we're actually gonna put them in the back plate. Let's see if you guys can see. Let me zoom out a bit. And they fit one way only. So that way you are gonna have it looking something like, let me move the graphics cards. There we go. So you have it right here. Oh, I took it off. So it fits in the bigger of the two holes. And just place it in like that. Grab the other one. Do the same thing on this side. And then be careful when you flip it over so it does not, oh, I accidentally lost some of the thermal compound. So let's put that back. So yeah, just be careful. This happens. It's happened like 3 or 4 times already to me. Let's get it nice and snug on there. And then once you have that, you can take this the plate, and you can place the plate back down and it will be nice and snug. So now that you have that, so you're going to take the little hex screws from earlier and put them back into their place over here. Let's flip that over so you guys have a better viewing angle. And get all of these 4 screws in back to their spots. And then the last one here. Alright, so now once you have that back on, you can go ahead and take this Y bit and put it right back. And it just kind of pops in. You have to be careful on the sides. Sometimes they pop out and you kind of gotta take it off and maybe start with it like this and then just push it down. And then it should be like that. Now, the last 4 screws are going to be the hidden screws, and these ones are the Phillips heads, I believe, the little Phillips. So go ahead and swap your bit if you're using a multi-headed tool like the iFixit kit. So after you have swapped the heads on your screwdriver or grabbed your small Phillips screwdriver, you're going to go ahead and start screwing these back in. And there's 4 of them. Doesn't really matter which order you put them in. Make sure they're fastened nicely. Cool. And then the metallic, the magnetic pieces that we had put aside earlier, the ones that I taped away, you're just gonna go ahead and clip, and they go right back because they're magnetic, which is kind of a pain, so make sure that you set them aside so that they don't randomly attach themselves to stuff. And I don't believe there's a specific place for them. All the pieces are fairly similar. I mean, I think some of them go in certain places. Like that one I think is a curved one. Nope, that one is not the curved one. There's definitely maybe a curved one. I can't really tell, to be honest. I think this one's a curved one. Yep, that one's the curved one. I think all the other ones are exactly the same though. So, there we go. And now we are basically done putting this all back together. So I'm gonna go ahead and test out my temps and I'll let you know how good it is. I was getting about 104, 105 on the VRMs earlier. So let's see how cool this 3080 FE wants to run for me now. All right, and here we are back at my computer where you guys can see the temps that we're working with now are significantly lower than they were before. I'm getting about 78 to 80 C on this card, and before I was getting about 105, 106, sometimes even higher. It's significantly less now. Now, the reason the hash rate is so low is because I'm actually capturing directly from the screen, and that really takes a hit on your mega hash when you're doing a screen recording. So as you guys can see, the hash rate is really low, but once I stop this recording, it's gonna go back up to like 98 to 100, especially now that the VRMs are a lot cooler. I let it run previously without turning on the video recording, and the temps did go up slightly. I think we were about 80, 82. So that is more than 20 degrees Celsius difference in the VRM temperatures, and that is just insane, especially when you're mining Ethereum and like on these cards, the memory just runs way too hot. And so this definitely adds a nice buffer. I feel like it's gonna help increase the longevity of the cards, and it's gonna help us mine better because now the fans aren't gonna run as fast. My fan used to be running at 100%, and if I set it to 70, my VRAM would go up to like 110. It was insane. So now I have it set to 70 and the VRAMs go to like 80. So we are doing great with temperatures now. I can let it go to auto which will lower the fan. It usually lowers to like 30%, which is not the greatest. But before, when it was thermal throttling, it would kick the fans up to 100. So now it doesn't actually thermal throttle, so it bases the temperature off the CPU, or the core clock, I should say. So I have to manually set it to the proper fan speed that I want. So I do 50 to 70 depending on temperatures. But I like 70. It seems to be pretty decent. If you go over 70, I feel like that's when you have longevity issues with the card. But yeah, as you can see, it does appear to be working just fine, no problems. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked this video. And if you did, please feel free to thumbs up and subscribe down below if you're new to the channel. If you have any questions, comments, or anything of the sorts, please feel free to leave it down below in the comments. Or send me an email. I've gotten plenty of your guys' email and I'm still trying to catch up to all of them. I know everybody always wants to talk, but I will get to your emails as soon as possible. I have been gone for a couple of weeks. You probably noticed I haven't posted. I actually was ill after getting vaccinated. I had a really severe reaction to it, so I was out for a while. So I'm back now. I do have a lot of work to catch up on, so I'll try to keep posting as many videos as possible, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that I do have a lot of stuff piled up now because I was gone for a few weeks due to the vaccination sickness. Once again, thanks for watching, guys, and we will catch you in the next one.